got an eruption down here. Now we got a big slide coming off. The slide is coming off of the west slope. Now we got a whole great big eruption out of the crater. And we got another that opened up on the west side, and the whole west side, northwest side, is slides down.
Today, we are remembering the deadliest volcanic event in U.S. history. It happened right here in Washington 40 years ago today. Thank you for joining us this morning on a special edition of Up with KREM. This morning, we are counting down to the exact moment that the anniversary of the eruption of Mt-St. happened 40 years ago. It happened at 8:32 in the morning on Sunday, May 18th, 1980. Now, in the weeks leading up to that explosion, Mt-St. Helens hinted at her power. In late March of that year, climbers had been warned of avalanches and earthquakes happening every 5 to 10 minutes. Now, over the next few weeks, roads were closed and volcanologists measured a growing bulge on the side of the mountain. Hundreds of people began to evacuate small towns and campgrounds around her peak. Then on Sunday morning, May 18th, 1980, it happened.
Now we got a whole great big eruption out of the crater. And we got another that opened up on the west side, and the whole west side, northwest side, is slides down.
At 8:32, the largest landslide in recorded history blasted out at 130 miles per hour, a column rising 80,000 feet into the atmosphere, and it would drift east for days, dropping ash across 11 states and throughout Canada. Now, we've got a side-by-side look this morning at what Mt-St. Helens looks like today and what it looked like 4 decades ago. Today, Mt-St. Helens is still active. It is the most active volcano in the Cascade Range. Seismic activity around the volcano has quieted after the mid-1980s. According to the USGS, of the volcanoes in the contiguous U.S., it is the most likely to erupt in the future and could even happen during our lifetimes. Now, here in Spokane, less than 4 hours after the explosion, you can see visuals here of ash that started falling from the sky. And according to the USGS, 1/2 inch to 4 inches were recorded throughout the Spokane and surrounding counties and the areas there. Here you can see video from downtown Spokane. You might actually recognize Main Street, even though visibility was limited and high buildings were lost in some of the clouds of ash.
Howdy, I'd like to buy a historic souvenir edition of this morning's newspaper.
Some of you might have also received this copy of the Spokesman Review 40 years ago tomorrow. Our KREM 2 news crews were all over town talking to people who were still attempting to work in the ash-covered downtown area.
The wind carried the ash cloud into eastern Washington, turning day into night. It reached Spokane by noon. A gray, gritty ash storm.
You got any place to go?
Right. Like going to church.
Might not be a bad idea.
We also want to take a look at what Riverfront Park looked like 40 years ago today. Let's welcome in our Nicole Hernandez, who joins us live from downtown Spokane this morning. Nicole, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Joshua. So a lot of you probably actually remember what Riverfront Park looked like here the day that cloud moved in, covering this area with ash. Looks a lot different than what Riverfront Park looks like right now behind.
Well, what you're looking at is a view at Riverfront Park now compared to what we could see in video, with iconic Spokane landmarks covered in ash like the clock tower and the pavilion, which are barely visible on this day in 1980. As we hear from our own Jen York later this morning, most of downtown looked like this in the hours following the explosion. While downtown Spokane might look a little different, local health leaders, state officials, and even President Jimmy Carter were all urging people to stay home and use masks in public, if that sounds familiar to today.
But I hope that everyone, as the material dries out, will continue to wear a face mask of some kind to minimize the material that will go into one's lungs.
It's extremely important that people wear masks and be exposed to it as little as possible. But at the same time, there must be a community effort to get rid of it. It's not going to go away by itself. People must help to get rid of it. And the best way is to wet
City
it down.
officials shut down the county and only essential businesses remained open while crews worked to clear the ash from the roadways. Also this morning, we know that the Ritzville area had the heaviest reports of ash throughout eastern Washington. It's about 195 miles away from the Mt-St-Helens area. There was anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of ash at any given point. That's almost twice as much as Yakima, which is only about half as far from the volcano. Meanwhile, closer to Spokane, people traveling on the highway were forced to pull over because their car engines were filled with ash.
I don't think anybody really panicked, other than the main concern was the amount of citizens that came into our community that were forced off of the highways, how we were going to get food to those people and take care of them as they were staying in the schools and in the churches.